I started talking about how important passion, compassion, empathy, collaboration, conversation is in leadership. And those aren't soft skills. Those are actually the essential skills. I actually think they are the most essential skills of leadership today. And yet we're losing our best leaders to care.
Welcome to Taking Care of Lady Business, where we have conversations about power, value, and success on your own terms. I'm talking with women who are building influence, wealth, and authority, not by following someone else's playbook, but by deciding what success looks like for themselves. These are candid conversations, hard-earned perspectives, and no BS insight from women who aren't asking permission. They're setting the standard. I'm your host, Jennifer Justice. Most people call me JJ. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. I'm Jennifer Justice. Today, we have Shelley Zalis. She's the CEO of Female Quotient and Chief Troublemaker, and you are going to hear all about why. And if you don't know Female Quotient, I want you to stop the podcast right now and follow it on Instagram because you will become obsessed. Thank you for coming on this. You are so busy. I feel so privileged.
It was love and hello with you, I swear. I have never had so much fun at lunch. I remember that lunch and it was way too long ago. So I just am so excited to be here with you and have the conversation. And thank you for all that you do to keep conversations real and actionable.
Thank you. Well, let's get into, what Female Quotient is and, a little bit background about how and why you started it.
Wow. The Female Quotient, we have the largest global community of women in business, over 7.5 million across 30 industries, 100 countries. And we create safe spaces for conscious conversations that lead to intentional actions for change. So I don't care if you're a man or if you're a woman, it's not about gender. It's about if you're in a position of power, let's collaborate, let's share, and then let's create the actions that can create the change. So we're all about rewriting the rules in the workplace so that all of us can thrive.
Right. Which is super necessary, obviously, since so many of the statistics that we thought were moving forward and getting better have not, right?
Well, there's talk, there's pledges, and then there's action. And I think if you think about possibilities, anything is possible if you want it. What it requires is use your position of power and create change. And we all are in positions of power. You don't have to be tapped a title of your CEO, go, whatever level, wherever you are in the organization, we all have the power to be better and to grow and to create the culture that we want to be part of in a company.
So how did you start? How did you come up with this idea?
By accident. It's not in a textbook, and I think I coined the phrase business of equality before anyone was talking about women or DE&I or any of those things. I was the only female CEO, top 25. My claim to fame in business, what I did for a living was market research. Have you ever taken a survey on the internet, an online survey?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, not sorry, but I was the mother of that invention. So I created that in 2000. And it wasn't a problem for me being, the only female CEO, top 25. I did quite well. But you go to these big conferences and you're an only and lonely. There's lines at the men's room and there's no lines in the women's room, which is
one perk, right?
And so after I sold my company a couple of times, but the last one to Ipsos, which was the largest global research company in the world, once again, I had 250 employees doing 60 million in revenue, operating in 6 cities, but global because of online. I sold to a company of 16,000 employees doing 2.6 billion in revenue across 83 countries. And now I'm on a public board of 25, 2 women out of 25. And I'm sitting there with a great reputation and pretty well known. And they're talking about my employees like chess pieces, moving them around in different places. And tears came down my eyes. And I was pulled aside after the meeting. And I was told there was no room for emotion in the boardroom. And I'm like, it's not emotion. Those people didn't belong in those positions. And if you actually know who they are, this person goes here, and this Sarah goes here, and Martha goes here, and Paul goes here, and Peter goes here. And it was in that moment that I realized again, and I have a lot of those stories, not that they held me back. If someone asked me to take notes, I'd ask them to get the coffee So I'm okay with that. But I had two options at the time. My head said, I just sold my company. It's my first board meeting. Just nod your head. But my heart, ba-boom, 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 said no. So what did I do? I gave a speech to thousands, and it was called Bring Emotion to the Boardroom, exclamation point, pink heart, pink heart, pink heart.
Oh my God.
And that was that. And that was in 2010. And it was just that moment. No one was talking about empathy and compassion and passion, especially as a CEO. But why? Status quo never talked about it. We always talk about the ROI, the return on investment, but not the return on empathy or the return on human or the return on conscious leadership or the return on how you create a culture of belonging and safety. And so I started the conversation. I'm not foreign to being the first at doing things. And I started talking about how important passion, compassion, empathy, collaboration, conversation is in leadership. And those aren't soft skills. Those are actually the essential skills. I actually think they are the most essential skills of leadership today. And yet we're losing our best leaders to care. That was that. And then once I started talking about it, it just was something I started feeling more about and realizing this is my responsibility to create the changes that I want to see because it hasn't been done before. And when you're the first starting something, it's, whoa, that's weird. But there's the status quo and then there's the possibility. And if you go after possibility, it takes that persistence. And so after my 5-year contract at Ipsos, I decided it was time to give back with generosity what I wish I had my whole career, women supporting women. I'm turning 64. I didn't have that then. And shame on me if I just leave the mess to the next generation and to the next generation, the next generation. And that's when I created the Girls Lounge. The opposite of boy is girl, the opposite of club is lounge. If there's a boys club now, there's a girls lounge, and creating safe spaces at traditional big industry conferences that are predominantly male dominated.
Yeah, well, that's where we originally met, right? In Cannes, when I was working at Rock Nation, and you had the girls' lounge, and you did something with Refinery 29.
How long ago was that, Jenny?
That was 2015, and it was amazing. And I I was like, this is exactly what needs to happen. And it was just like so new. Think about it; it's like only 11 years ago, right? And like so much is like the vernacular, and what everybody's talking about has changed so much. So that was the girls' lounge, and then when came the Female Quotient?
Okay, so while I was at Ipsos, I wanted to go to CES. I wanted to bring Ipsos, a research company, into tech. So I called 5 girlfriends and I said, will you walk the floor of CES with me? Because I don't want to go by myself. I said, if you know other girlfriends, please bring them. And so 24 hours later, 50 women showed up. And I called it the Ipsos Girls Lounge at the time. And 2 remarkable things happened walking the floor. One, every single guy's head turned, like, where the heck did all you women come from? And it's when I coined the phrase power of the pack. Collectively, we have impact. I was fine going by myself in the past. It was this whoosh moment. It was a feeling of confidence and power. And it was remarkable. And the second thing that happened was I was surrounded by people just like me, work-life balance issues, imposter syndrome. And yet we all had power of the purse. We were power women that all had money to do deals with each other. And I remember meeting in my hotel room, and we were all like in my closet. It was a king size bedroom. I called my hairdresser. I said, come from LA, because it was in Vegas, bring my car, and let's do everyone's hair and makeup while we're all doing power deals, and let's be who we are. And the next day, 50 turned to 150, 150. I had the penthouse suite by day 3, 300. And it was amazing, like fun and collaborative, and business was happening. And it was just this thing. And so that thing became a thing. And then I realized if I can connect women in tech at CES, what about women in media at Cannes? So you were at the second one we ever did. What about women at CES? And so after I connected a huge community of women across the board as the Girls Lounge, I then evolved to the Equality Lounge. And now today we call it the FQ Lounge. Plenty of men come, but it was a space designed by women for everyone. Like men love coming into the lounge. They actually put the toilet seat down. And
Yeah.
I call it the place for conscious leaders. And that's really what it became. But the big turning point, I think, was being invited to the World Economic Forum. And I received this invitation from, the World Economic Forum. We want you to come to Davos, but you might not feel welcome.
Davos is supposed to be solving these massive world problems, but you won't feel welcome.
Well, it really was. Less than 17% of white badges are women have. So there's very few women there. And bringing something called the Girls Lounge to Davos is weird. It is weird. And so, my head said, don't go. My heart said, of course I have to. This is sort of my responsibility. And so we got the last space. It was like a hole in the wall. I created an unbadged space, which is what we do everywhere we go, unbadged so that everyone is welcome. And I had a slumber party at the World Economic Forum. I took villas, invited 50 women, and we all showed up because I realized, well, I might not feel welcome, but if I bring the pack, I know what that feels like. We'll make our own fun. If no one comes in, that's okay. We have each other and we'll have the best content. I'll have the most beautiful, warm and cozy space. And that's that. And so that's what we did. I hung the sign, the Girls Lounge, and I called it the place for the 17%.
Amazing.
And I had big windows so you could see right in the hanging chandeliers, which did not exist anywhere on the promenade in Davos. And year 2, Jamie Dimon came and he said, wow, you have balls. This is the best thing that's happened to Davos. And he said, from this day on, if you want me, I will be your keynote speaker and I will be your first sponsor. 10 years later, Jamie comes. It will make me cry, but he comes every year.
Wow.
Shows up.
I know what the subject line is going to be for this podcast. Jamie Dimon said, wow, you got balls. That's amazing. And then, so when you're doing this, and they're your first sponsor, how are you funding all of this?
It's all partner powered. And I don't even call them sponsors because our partners are, it's not the you, it is the we. It is not my space or your space. It is our space. And it is very collective. So I really wanted it to be the responsibility of corporates, of the companies. It's free for anyone to come so that it opens up the system that anyone, whether you have a badge or you don't have a badge, to go to the conference, you are always welcome in our lounge. And that is criteria for all of our lounges in any conference we go to, is that we are open to everyone. And it is partner powered. And so all of our partners are speakers, are contributors. We've become a media brand, because we have the largest global community of women in business. We are creating custom curated content now across all of our channels, digital channels. It's been really a remarkable experience watching where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And I always say we're not in the business of women. We are not in the business of DE&I. We are in the business of opportunity. And when you look at economic growth and you look at scale and you look at innovation and you look at corporations, because we are private sector, Fortune 500 companies, it is our responsibility to create the culture, to create the changes that we want to see, to ensure that we have representation to reflect the society, the customers, the consumers, the creators that we serve, which has to naturally be diverse, and not diversity of gender, race, age, diversity of lived experience at the table.
Right. So you don't specify these things so you can show the human element across everyone.
Exactly.
And then back to, when you were saying when you were at Ipsos and talking about leadership and care and all of that, being a market researcher, have you done that research to prove your theory right and what it says?
We do a ton of research around it. And, it is very well documented. And I'll take it to another level, especially with AI today, the importance of the human. Computer doesn't feel.
Yeah.
A computer has the data.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the heart.
Yeah.
And so when you think about head, heart, it can replace a lot of the tasks when you think about the tasks. But we're always going to need, especially from an innovation perspective, the empathy, the passion, the heart, the innovation of what to think about going forward versus the data synchronizing and historical, back to go forward.
Right, right. Now, we were talking about this a little bit before because, I see that, they say that they're going to replace lawyers. I'm like, they can tell you what a case says, but they can't tell you how to communicate it or what points are the most important to communicate,
You need the zigzag. How do you respond in a fashion? So it doesn't have the zigzag. It has linear and it has the historical. And by the way, it will accelerate and amplify in remarkable ways. But we still have bias in the data. And we need to understand where those biases exist so that we can ensure we don't just keep perpetuating that. So there's those pause and pivot moments that you do need that human to be a part of.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Thank God we're still going to be relevant.
Exactly. We still can keep our jobs for a bit anyway. Yeah. So the Female Quotient has been around for 11 years. And in that time, what kind of changes have you seen in the workplace? When you have these partner powered, events, et cetera, and you're talking to these people, like, what have you seen change?
I think what's changing is, number one, our people that have participated in lounges, whether in real life, in virtual life, through our content, are much more conscious. Some people say, oh, it's unconscious bias. Well, if you use the word unconscious, you're conscious. Once you're conscious, you have a choice. Do something or don't. So I would say of our community, we have all conscious leaders. And so we are all very consciously aware, and we don't just talk about things, we actually share. Our conversations in our lounges are so collaboratively, collectively, universally. Like I say, you walk in a lounge, you get a hug, hello, and a yes. And then someone, what did I just say yes to? So it's just a space where all of our leaders are collaborating together, sharing the good, bad, and the ugly, what works, what doesn't. And we talk about everything that is not sanctioned. You're speaking from your heart of what you're experiencing and what you see. So I think that is the first thing that we see is just open conversations to share and to go together. That's number one. I also see individually, a lot of our leaders are much more confident. They don't have that imposter syndrome. They know to shut that bitch up in their head one way or another and just go with confidence. And if you don't ask, you don't know. So they're all taking those big giant steps forward of not just dialoguing, but doing, what it takes. So I think that has been really important in bringing that back into their, companies. And they're all in positions of leadership of some sort. I think we see a lot of that, and not being afraid to rewrite the rules or to write the new rules forward and to have a whole new open mindset of possibility, because it's not hard. The World Economic Forum says it's going to take another 123 years to close the gender gap.
Right.
Why?
Why?
We have the data. We have the insight. We have the wherewithal. A leader can actually achieve in the lifetime of their leadership. A leader can actually achieve to close the gap. There's the pay gap. There's the care gap. There's, now everyone's calling it the ambition gap, which does not exist. When we start talking about these things, we actually start realizing them, whether they're true or false, but perception becomes reality.
Yeah.
We actually stop talking about them and just fixing them. We won't have that gap anymore. But we just keep talking about it. So it keeps getting bigger and bigger and it doesn't go away.
We're 51% of the population. We have the power. We just need to use the strategy and do it,
And not just women. I don't know what percentage is conscious leaders now, but anyone that's been in my group is a conscious. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. If you're in a position of power and you're aware, fix it. Look what happened during COVID. Nothing changed in the workplace for the past 100 years. Significant. And then all of a sudden COVID hits. And overnight, we had new rules defining how we work. We did a pretty good job. And that was hard. Going from, working in an office to now everyone individually working from home. New tools got built overnight. Who used Zoom before, or Riverside or whatever? Nobody. And all of a sudden, we're now experts like this. And leadership had to change. And how we work, how we communicate, how we interact, everything changed in one fell swoop. And not just for a minute. For how many years was that? 2?
Yeah, basically for 2 easily. I mean, I think a lot of people are still, trying to get employees back into the office,
We use the wrong language. Language matters. We're not getting people back to office. We're getting people back with people.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's that, what we talked about before, that intangible people.
Yeah.
This that creates relationship. You can have continuation through a screen, but you can't develop a relationship not being with people. And it's those water cooler moments that are priceless.
Right. And, the other thing, like you were, brought up with COVID, is that people could see how hard it was to be home and run a household and work, you know what I mean? And like to work and run a household in general. So there's a lot more empathy for that, and understanding that you could get things done in other times, not just during this particular time. Right. And I think it was so important for that to be seen across the board.
And also, partners played a role. If someone has a partner in helping and, and care, we are losing our best leaders to care. And care is a really significant problem. And it's what I tell companies, Fortune 500 companies, don't wait for the government to fix the care problem.
Right.
You could fix it yourself.
Exactly.
I said there are so many benefits that you have for your employees that most employees don't know about or care about. Take that money and give everyone a care wallet, everyone, whether it's for self-care, for childcare, for elderly care, which will then cover every employee out of those 3 buckets.
Yeah.
And let them deploy that money as they wish. Outside of healthcare, healthcare is necessity outside of that. But, there's solutions. If you are open to looking for new possibilities, there are solutions. There's always a solution. You just have to create it. You just have to find it. You just have to make it.
When you advise the companies of this, because you have such a bird's eye view of all of these issues, given what you guys do and your market research, et cetera, what is the pushback? What's the reason not to?
People look at why not versus why yes. Like Mark Benioff decided to close the pay gap in his company. What he didn't realize by closing the pay gap was every company he acquires, he has to do it. And what I say is, don't look at the problems of the why not. Look at the why yes. So start by saying we're not going to retrofit, retro pay, back pay. But moving forward with every new class that comes in of new hires, you are going to set the scales, have the scales. It shouldn't be negotiation, right? Because that's where the problems come in. The first promotion. So the biggest problems with pay gaps start at the first promotion. Men will ask for it and they will negotiate, and women in general will accept. And so once you have a gap, it keeps growing. And the second is in care, is in parental leave, especially in the United States where women take it. And even if you have elective, men tend not to. Women tend to miss their promotions or their raises during maternity leave. The gaps kick in. So to fix it, you have to first understand where they happen. And so you have to fix the pieces that go with it.
Were you trying to put me out of a job? That's what I do, negotiate for women. No.
Right.
I would love it though, because I keep having the same conversations. Publicly traded companies are like, we always have this issue where women are never negotiating for it. I was like, but you're the ones who understand that. So just offer it.
What's crazy is when I sold my company to Ipsos, the lawyer, negotiating my contract said, so what is your salary expectation? And I said to her, wow. I said, I don't know. I said, I have 3 options. 1, I can go outside and ask my friends that are all CEOs of big companies, like what their package is. 2, I can ask inside the company on the board what theirs is. Or 3, all I want is the same as the other board members. I'm not looking for more. I'm not looking for less, just the same. So she comes back to me and she's amazing. And she said, well, you now have the best package of anyone in the company. I said, why? She goes, well, I looked at everyone's salaries and they were different levels. So I matched the top one. I looked at everyone's bonus comp and there was all over the place. So I just picked the best one to match. And then with equity, there were different. So I just gave you the best one. And I said, great. If someone gets a raise, can you let me know? Like, why is this up to me to figure it out?
I think the companies rely on women and the bottom line, rely on them not negotiating.
Right. Of course. We could fix it. Like by doing exactly that. It should be levels and packages. And maybe the flex in there is based on experience, but it should be very clear.
Exactly. And it makes it so much more difficult. And nobody is, I mean, I've taught at like Columbia Business School, I've taught classes on negotiating your comp. And they were like, wait a minute, why am I Columbia Business School? And this was a lunch and learn where you got free pizza. I thought everybody was going to walk out and everybody stayed. And they're like, why has nobody told us this before? I've never even thought about it.
It's just dumb. And then if you're going to have maternity leave and elective paternity leave, then ensure that while that woman is on maternity leave, or by the way, this kicks in for a man too, if they're the primary caregiver or whatever, because it's the primary caregiver, but in general, the primary caregiver still tends to be women, then make sure if it's 3 months that they are getting the same promotion and raise, even if they're not physically there, so that we're not missing that moment, right? And as you leave for maternity leave or parental leave, ensure that your entrance back in is going to be fluid. There's things to do. So for me, I just make the invisible visible.
It's so obvious, everybody. Like, it's so obvious. Look, in the meantime, this is what I do. I help them ask for the things they deserve and make sure they're not underpaid. And you're over here going, and look, I love doing it, but it's exhausting because you're like, why is this even necessary? If you want to fire somebody, fire them and then pay them. Like, don't try to pay them 2 weeks. Don't try, you know what I mean? These are executives. Like, why do I have to come in and do this? But, you're here at the top level going, it's so obvious. And I'm talking to these companies, so I love everything that you guys are doing,
We're probably hosting over 80 experiences a year, from our lounges at big conferences, FQ lounges at big conferences, to summits where we do full day summit by our industries. So like an AI summit, a health summit, et cetera, a cyber summit, pop-up cocktail parties, dinner parties, bringing people together in different cities or countries, bringing people together. So we're doing so much of sports. We're inspiring the next generation of girls and women in motorsports for F1 with F1 Academy. Just stuff where it's just really, truly making the invisible visible. Storytelling, the content piece is really crucial in changing the equation in a whole new way. When I created the name FQ, when you asked me about Female Quotient, it was the first thing I put on a paper. It really was a napkin moment for me because everyone talks about IQ, the intelligence quotient. Then everyone started talking about EQ, the emotional quotient. And so my napkin said, first came IQ, then came EQ, now comes FQ. When you add more women to any equation, the equation gets better. And I even wrote on a napkin, it's on my t-shirt, someone put the napkin on a t-shirt, but it says the algorithm for equality. And I wrote that 11 years ago, the algorithm for equality. And when you look at AI today with algorithms and why it matters, it's not equality equal for equal sake. It's about equality for representation and reflection sake. And that's why we've gone now from the girls' lounge to take on the boys' club to the equality lounge to, for conscious leaders to now just the FQ lounge, because it is about making the equation better in everything and ensuring there's no junk in the trunk and that the bias and the algorithms, women weren't in trials until 1993. And think about why we're misdiagnosed in health. They weren't in clinical trials. Or people don't even think about this, which is crazy. The algorithm today, they are fixing it now. But my maiden name is Zalis. My married name is Fleschner. I've never changed my name other than, legally for the kids at school, it's Zalis Fleschner, and it's complicated with airlines and whatever. But my name for work has always been Zalis. I never changed it. I write a lot of articles. If I changed my name tomorrow to Fleshner and kept using that as my pen name, Fleshner and Zalis would not connect in the algorithm.
Right.
So I get dropped in the algorithm.
Right.
So like these are the types of things that when people get married and men don't change their name in general and women do, you're dropped in an algorithm if the dots don't get connected.
Yeah.
Or as women, we collaborate and share in articles and we co-author. If you're not the first author on a paper, your name is not pulled into the algorithm. If you're third or fourth place, right? And we always put everyone before us because we share, you're dropped from the algorithm.
All of these like nuggets of knowledge are like so important to understand. And I was going to ask you where the female quotient came from. So I'm so glad that you went into it and you did it. And you told us where it is because it makes so much sense. Because when you represent things, when you're trying to make equality across everything, and women in particular, men can get so like, oh, do you only care about the women? I'm like, no, if women are equal, everything's going to be better, not just for women, but for everyone.
It's the equalizing. You have to reflect the society we serve. And you said it brilliantly. It's 51%. So if you don't have that lived experience at the table, you cannot represent and reflect the world you serve.
Exactly. And the only way to prove us wrong is when we're, all there reflecting together.
Well, that's why, we always say, oh, we need male allies. No, we don't need male allies. We need leadership allies. The second you say we need a male ally, we're already assuming that men are better leaders. Take that language out of the equation.
Yes. Oh my God, I love that. No, it's so true. It's so true. You got it. Because when you're making that assumption, then that's of course where all the self-doubt, imposter syndrome and everything comes, because you're already putting somebody above you, their, opinions, and that they know more, etc.
Leadership training in general goes to women, or women opt in for it. Men don't.
Same. Board training. It's like, I don't see any men in any of these classes.
No.
Yeah.
That's why I got rid of the word empowerment. You don't hear about male empowerment. Why do we have female empowerment?
Yeah. True. Yeah. I try not to use it too. Sometimes it falls out, but I'm like, look, we already have the power. We just need to exert it and understand en masse, that we all already have it within us. Yeah, I agree. Oh my God, this has been so amazing. And I know I have to let you go because you're so busy and you're traveling and et cetera. But there's one question that we ask everybody on this podcast. And that is, what is the worst advice you've ever received?
Ooh, that's easy for me, to follow the rules.
I can't even imagine who told you to follow the rules.
I got dinged for not following the rules, which is why I'm chief troublemaker. I break every rule that doesn't make sense and create the new ones so that we can actually move forward with possibility and make the impossible possible, because it is possible.
Of course, because rules were made for the people who they benefit, right? Not for the people they don't. Yes. There you go. Oh my God, what an amazing way to end this. Although I could talk to you for another 4 or 5 hours, but
next time I'm going to interview you.
I love it. So where can people find Female Quotient in you?
Female Quotient. So across all digital channels, from YouTube to TikTok to Instagram to LinkedIn. We're obsessed with LinkedIn for thought leadership. So that's a really good one. And then also Shelley Zalis, both. Come to our lounges.
Yeah, because they're literally everywhere, from South by Southwest, Davos, Cannes, where else?
Just Super Bowl, NBA All-Star, Masters. We're now going to the Masters for the first time, F1. We democratize the system, so anyone is welcome to anything that we do. Just RSVP and you're in.
Oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much, Shelley, for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor, truly.
Thanks to MedJet for supporting the Takin Care of Lady Business podcast. When you travel for work or internationally, the real question isn't if something could happen, it's whether you've planned for it. That's why I'm a member of MedJet and have been for years. If your security is threatened or you're hospitalized while traveling, MedJet can get you home and to the hospital you choose, not just the closest one. It's not travel insurance. It's about not leaving critical decisions to chance. If you travel regularly, it's worth having in place. You can learn more at medjet.com. Thanks for tuning in to Taking Care of Lady Business. If this was useful, subscribe and share with a friend. Make sure to check out the show notes for more on my guest and me, Jennifer Justice. Taking Care of Lady Business is a production of Lady Business LLC. See you next time.